Well, good morning, Malcolm Nance.
Good morning, Steffi. Anything going on?
No, no. You were looking snappy in your, as you call it, I told you so vest.
Yes, I have three vests, and I don't know if anybody noticed before I wore a red one. That was my I told you so, one of my I told you so vests. This is my getting hotter I told you so vest. The gold one is my impeachment vest,
Oh,
and I'm saving
Oh,
that.
wow. Okay. Yeah, I mean, what can you say? You tweeted, "Welcome to my world. This is the biggest political scandal in U.S. history. There is a national counterintelligence investigation targeting the White House. The president and all of his staff are implicated." You have been saying this for, I think you said here, 2 years, 4 months on my show, on national TV, in your books. This is a spy hunt. Explain it again to those of us, to the stragglers.
My God, if you were to type in Malcolm Nance and spy hunt under Google, you would get me at least 20 times using that phrase, explaining over the last 2.5 years that a national counterintelligence investigation, is how we started. That is a spy hunt.
You kept saying it. They can't try to spin this. The FBI's gone rogue. And when Lindsey Graham's like, why are they doing this? As you said, and as they said in the Lawfare blog that everybody's talking about, this is about Russia. It's always been about Russia, full stop. They were investigating Russians, and Americans got picked up on surveillance, correct?
Absolutely. And, we said this in July 2016, all August 2016, all September 2016, right up to the election and then afterwards. And now the New York Times finally gets a couple of guys on record saying what everyone else in the intelligence community knew was obvious, because there would have to have been a counterintelligence investigation. There is no way they would leave Donald Trump off of that. The evidence is overwhelming. The circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. So the FBI had to do that. So finally, it took them 2 years, but the New York Times got some guys on the record that, yes, they started this counterintelligence investigation to consider Trump a Russian asset. Of course, by that time, I had already had 2 books written saying the exact same thing. And now we find that information they turned it over to the special counsel. So for all the naysayers who were out there saying, oh, Robert Mueller is only going to come up with some mild stuff and obstruction of justice, and, Donald Trump can pretty much get out of that. No, this has been what it has always been. The question was, did the president of the United States and a candidate at that time, was he in the pocket of an ex-KGB officer and ruler, dictator of Russia? And the answer is starting to tilt towards yes.
Well, as you said, the only answer to are you now or have you ever worked for Russia, Mr. President, would be no. You said, since you won't say no, we're going to go with hashtag Russian asset. I mean, yeah.
Innocent people say no, right? I've been in a national counterintelligence investigation where someone at the entire 3rd floor of the building I was at NSA was re-interviewed. Hundreds of people, because one of those people had gone over to the Russians. I didn't work anywhere near that guy. And they re-interviewed everybody. And when they brought you to the polygraph, the question they wanted to get a clean answer on was, are you or have you worked for, are you working with a foreign government, to subvert the United States? And at that point, you break out into a sweat, into a panic, and you go, no! Donald Trump didn't say that. Donald Trump says that question's insulting.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is insulting. It's more insulting when you're a Russian spy.
And the other thing we keep talking about, you obviously brought up Lindsey Graham, who you call Russian asset. But Lindsey Graham very strongly against having the translator at the Trump meeting ever reveal what was said. This is, I guess, what we're going to find out is how many people are dirty.
And that's the word you have to use. That's actually a technical term in counterintelligence. Dirty is a person who has been confirmed or is suspected of working for a hostile intelligence agency. And, and that's why we say the FBI's counterintelligence job is to not only clean your tail if you're an innocent person, but it's to foil the hostile counterintelligence officers and then detect and criminally apprehend American citizens who are working for them, whether it's ISIS or Al Qaeda or the Ecuadorian intelligence or the Peruvian intelligence or Russian intelligence. If you're working for them and not for us, we are going to check to see if you're dirty. And then if you're innocent of that, we're going to clean your tail. Donald Trump is and has been from the very beginning. It was clear there was something dirty about him, whether it was his business dealings, all went back to the Kremlin, whether it was him selling apartments, all went back to people associated with Russian intelligence in the Kremlin. Every one of the people who had 100 contacts with Russia in the last 2 years lied about it. Lying in counterintelligence is a consciousness of guilt. And of course, these guys are the spy hunters of the nation.
Yeah.
So they had to have been pulling their hairs out in panic. But now here we are. We all know about it. It's only a question of the depth of knowledge.
Well, and Malcolm, it seems like you don't even need to be a spy. This has always been done all out in the open. I mean, that's how brazen it is, right?
I said that the other day on I think it was Ali Velshi on Lawrence O'Donnell. Treason in plain sight.
Yeah.
And I mean, these are people who, when confronted with the nation's spy hunters, right? The FBI counterintelligence officers who came to interview them, they to a man lied. So I've said this for over 2 years. I'm pulling my hair out. The number of times I said this. Why? That's the only question we're concerned with in the intelligence community. Why would you lie? Because that will tell us who, what, when, where, and how. But when we get to the why, that's going to hurt. And I think for Donald Trump, he now, this morning he went out on the White House grounds and started schmoozing, and then comes out and goes, I never worked for Russia. It took him, 48 hours to work out a justification in his head?
Yeah.
So that he could come out and, look, the man's a pathological liar. We can't take anything he says at face value.
Malcolm, obviously the Lawfare blog guy has been all over TV this weekend as well. What if obstruction was the collusion? I mean, this is what you've been talking about. Is these are two tracks: the counterintelligence track and the criminal track. But the thing that's concerning for me now is they're saying the counterintelligence thing. They can go on for years. What do you think happens? Yeah, go ahead. What do you think happens in a case like this?
If you read Plot to Hack America, my first book, which came out 6 weeks before the election, that was me describing a counterintelligence operation and the Russian operation and how the FBI and the U.S. intelligence community had to be seeing this and how it had to be organized. Every word of that was confirmed by President Obama and the CIA when they put out their reports. But if you read Plot to Destroy Democracy, right, it very clearly spells out in the chapter I wrote about Donald Trump called A Treasonous Aspect that Donald Trump's obstruction was all obstruction of his intelligence operation, of the counterintelligence operation of the FBI. And I find it awesome that Benjamin Wittes just figured that out this weekend. But, many people have had their head in the sands. I mean, David Korn wrote a book about this. Luke Harding wrote a book about this. Practically everybody in the news media has written a book essentially saying all the evidence points to Donald Trump as either an intelligence asset, whether witting or unwitting. I think I used that phrase, witting or unwitting asset, on 28 July 2016 on Joy Reid's show. And for a month, people thought I was a freak.
Yeah.
It has to exist because the evidence that we're seeing, which is 1/1000th of a 10% of Robert Mueller's, already indicated it.
Malcolm, when we have a weekend like this, I mean, obviously it was only last week still that Manafort shared polling data. Then FBI opened inquiry into whether Trump was secretly working on behalf of Russia. Then Trump has concealed details of his face-to-face encounters with Putin from senior officials in this administration. Then what Mueller draft report says Trump helped destabilize the United States, according to Carl Bernstein. The next one, Kremlin blessed NRA Operation U.S. Intel report says. I mean, which of these is most significant? Like, where do you think we are with this? Because you've still got Trump and his enablers, like whether it's Lindsey Graham or Ted Cruz. Just I don't know how you deny all this, right?
I just think it's brilliant. Everything you just said is in Plot to Destroy Democracy. Every one of those assertions is in that book. I mean, right down to I have multiple chapters on how they're destabilizing the United States, how Vladimir Putin authorized the infiltration of the evangelicals and the NRA. Now it's just congealing in the minds of the main news media, who, they have to get it through reporting through their sources in the White House. So if I'm doing the projection, let me do a little more projection, because all of this came to a head this weekend. And I also think that journalists tend to pull the trigger on their articles when they see somebody getting the jump on them. Mm-hmm. And I think the New York Times got the jump on the Post. Within hours, the Post put out a story that they had been working on for years. Carl Bernstein had said in writing what he's been saying on television. He had been saying for some time, everyone had been saying that Donald Trump's mission was to destabilize the United States. But in my world, yeah, his mission was to destabilize the United States for Donald Trump. And Russia knew that Donald Trump would destabilize the United States. So they capitalized on that, and they gave him a narrative frame in which everything that he did, everything that he said was within Russia's own framework. So Donald Trump was technically thinking in Russian. And that way, you can see why he would come out with spurious, crazy comments like the Soviets invaded Afghanistan to stop terrorism. No, they didn't. Why Macedonia and Montenegro are strong people who are destabilizing the West. Russia tried to pull a coup d'etat in Montenegro the week after Trump was elected in order to get a warm water port at the heart of NATO. I mean, all of these crazy things Donald Trump says are because he has been programmed. Like Trevor Noah said in his famous joke, Donald Trump ran as the Manchurian candidate on the platform that he was the Manchurian candidate. And Trump voters loved it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, are you as concerned as I am with all the stories about us, having targets in Iran? I mean, this is what I've always been afraid of, is he's going to declare a state of national emergency on the border, bomb Iran. I mean, I think we're in very dangerous period, don't you?
But would a state of emergency be a bridge too far for a lot of Republicans, where they'll start?
No.
No, you don't think so?
No. No. Oh, come on, Travis.
No.
That's Chris.
Your Ma's district voted for Devin Nunes again.
Oh, that was Chris, not me.
That was Chris. I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
No, that's okay.
Right.
Hey, Malcolm.
Hey, so my point being is that you're dealing with cult behavior. I wrote a whole book, 2 books, about how ISIS and Al Qaeda have distorted their own realities, and they have created a cult atmosphere in which anyone outside of their group cannot believe anything that does not exist within their group. And Trump supporters now will not believe. I said this on Joy Reid on Saturday. 30% of this nation will not believe anything that their law enforcement says, that their intelligence community says, that anyone other than Donald Trump says, because Donald Trump has successfully done what the Russians did to him. He built a frame around those people in which the alternate reality is their reality. And therefore, their decision-making algorithm is controlled by him, just as Trump's decision-making algorithm was framed by the Russians. Therefore, anything good for Moscow. And he tweeted that again this weekend.
Yeah.
We should have great relations with the Russians. Why can't we get along with the Russians? Dude, only someone who works for Russia would say that.
Right. Malcolm, before you go, you said we're going to reach a Benedict Arnold moment. Haven't we reached a few already?
I'm going to tell you, I said that I believe the last week of January 2017.
Yeah.
right after Mike Flynn went down, and I said it on Hardball. We are going to come based on what little we knew 2 years ago. Let me tell you, they're going to give Benedict Arnold a run for his money. If you don't believe me, there's at Jen Benedict Arnold on Twitter, who is hilarious. Who goes out and makes all these comments against Donald Trump, saying, "I'm with you." So,
Yeah. Yeah.
we are going to reach a moment where treason, this weekend, the word treason and traitor was used almost fluidly.
Yeah.
And it will become a reality, even though legally it's not viable, but the nation will start feeling betrayed.
Yeah. I'm old enough to remember when you and I were crazy liberal conspiracy theorists.
Oh my God! Well, don't forget. 2 weeks ago, Tucker Carlson, or 3 weeks ago, Tucker Carlson just heard what we were saying for 2 years, and he goes, "This is like InfoWars." Nope, it's called the Trump-Russia investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Malcolm, thanks for taking time early this week. It's a lot. So thank you, sir. And we will.
Okay.
I'll be pestering you a lot.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks. There
Bye.
he goes. Malcolm Nance.